All right. Episode 12. I start every episode with all right. You just hear a little all right.
Yeah, that's the way to start.
Yeah. Have you watched one before?
I've watched one of your episodes.
Which one did you watch?
The one where you said food isn't art.
Okay. I think that was
I
two
watched
ago.
clips here and there.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to have around in the background. You guys
Yeah?
have some.
This is very like narcissistic, but I really like our podcast. I listen to it all the time.
That's good. You got to be a fan of your own work.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a while, so Tyler's not here, and he usually wears the headphones.
Yeah, well.
So it has been a while since I've worn them, and it's messing with my audio and talking.
Yeah, well.
To hear myself very loudly. Usually it's just like a normal conversation. I can hear my recording. So yeah, we got.
This is going great so far.
This is going great, but we gotta. So yeah, Tyler's not here. We got Andrew in the house. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Andrew. Nice to meet you.
See, this is where you're saying with the camera gets weird because I don't ever talk into the camera. It's not there.
Well, who am I introducing to then? It's
to people. No, I'm just saying you can. I'm just saying that's why I don't do it. Because it does freak me out.
Okay, right. Do you want more of an introduction? What do you want me to say? How would you introduce?
I
host for once.
No, I've never introduced anyone. I'll put a little thing about you in the bio.
Okay, sure.
I think it's because I don't like acknowledging the people.
Right.
Yeah,
that's you never want to acknowledge.
No, they don't exist.
You never want to acknowledge your fan base.
It's just this.
Yeah,
our fans are everything. Actually, Andrew.
But don't acknowledge them.
Yeah, don't acknowledge them. But just personally, I'm personally acknowledging them.
Absolutely.
I know they're everything.
Right.
Yeah, we're nothing without them.
Did you hear that, fans?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Talking to just you particularly.
Yeah. Okay, so I got a would you rather.
Okay.
And I came up with a food related one because you got a bone to pick with me. So we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, but the would you rather is one food for the rest of your life or never see a medical professional again.
Which would I rather?
Yeah.
Okay. Follow-up questions? Am I allowed?
Yeah, you're allowed tons of follow-up questions.
So many follow-up questions.
I've thought of everything.
For the medical professionals.
Yeah.
Is it I am not allowed to go to medical professionals, or do I not need to?
No, because that's not a would you rather. Then it would be like, oh, I'm gonna live forever, right? But no, yeah. So
that's exactly what I was hoping.
Yeah, no. So you know, like that Black Mirror episode where she blocks somebody. Have you ever seen that? And it's just like blurred out.
No.
So it's like a.
So I'm not allowed to go to doctors.
You can, but they're like blurred out and they just mumble. You can't hear anything.
Okay, so saying. Like a Charlie Brown teacher.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm not allowed to go to seek medical help.
Yeah.
Or one food. Okay.
Yeah, or now, you have to pick one food for the rest of your life.
Now, does this one food?
You can pick any food. It's your choice.
Okay, any food. What happens if I pick a dumb food and it doesn't have all the nutrients? Does this food suddenly magically get all the nutrients I'd need?
No.
Or does my life become pretty short?
Well, not short. I think you can live on one thing for a long time. Because I've seen those strange addictions.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen those? Where someone's like, I eat nachos. That's my only food I eat. Or
yeah,
they're usually fries a lot of times.
There's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Deep fried stuff.
Yeah. Deep fried stuff can apparently get you quite a ways.
Yeah. Why? Do you know why that is?
I assume it's just lots of calories.
Yeah, I think you'd live for a long time on a lot of on just calories, but not like forever.
Well, I'm more worried about scurvy.
Yeah,
and various other vitamin deficiencies.
Right.
That's my fear.
I was trying to think of what I would pick.
I think it's gotta be one of those like Soylent products or one of those like
all
single meal.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
Soylent.
This is a pretty easy
I think it would have to be
question for me.
Yeah, because I guess if Soylent didn't exist, then it would be hard. But I think with Soylent,
I think you would probably get there with some sort of astronaut food or some sort of there's got to be something that some government has put together to keep their people going in the field. That is like an entire everything what you need in a meal.
I'm trying to think if that's allowed because it's kind of a mixture of foods, right? In one source.
Okay. If you're saying one arrangement of carbon,
no,
just chicken.
Yeah, it would be just because I was thinking it would be a meat. It would have to be a meat, is what I initially thought.
No, I would probably say you'd want it to be something like. I'm trying to think of what would have the most vitamins, nutrients, things like that.
Because I think you could probably get away with just a single meat, like a liver. But no, not a liver, because I think that's too much.
You'll die of scurvy too
Really?
early. Yeah. So what they found? Have you ever heard of like ancient trappers in North America, early trappers from Europe?
I've heard of them.
They would die of scurvy.
Okay, yeah.
Because their diet would consist of almost not anything but rabbits.
Yeah.
It would just be rabbits.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until they interacted with indigenous groups that they learned if they just boiled pine needles.
Yeah.
And had like a cup of pine water alongside their diet of rabbits, they would survive just fine.
Right.
But just eating rabbits, they'd actually die of starvation and nutrient deficiency.
I think you might be wrong about the rabbit thing, because you actually die. No, there's a fact about rabbits, specifically.
Okay.
That they don't have enough fat, and so you die of fat starvation. Yeah, because they're so lean. There's actually a name for it. Rabbits specifically. I know what you're talking about with scurvy, but rabbits specifically, you can die from eating just rabbits because they're missing not vitamin C, but there's something else.
Sure.
I think it's just fat. I think it's fat.
But
you're right with
point
rabbits.
Is, I don't think a meat's gonna get you there.
Right.
And I think something like a Soylent or a granola bar might get you.
This
there.
is the point of this podcast: is it's arguments about dumb things.
Yeah. Why don't you change the name of the? What is the name of the podcast?
Arrogantly in the middle.
That's right.
Yeah. But because we both.
Who's in the middle?
Well, it actually has a specific reason. The name.
Okay. Anyways,
but I think that's a bad reasoning to use rabbits as an example of why, because rabbits are very specific to a certain kind of sickness.
Right.
Rabbit starvation. I think it's actually called rabbit starvation.
Right. Either way, I wasn't gonna go with meat.
Rabbit.
That was that wasn't. Yeah,
that would have been a good left field.
Yeah.
I'm picking rabbit.
I'm thinking stuff like potato. If I had to pick like a single, plant or animal, I'm gonna pick something like either a potato or like a barley, something that our ancient ancestors could build like a whole basis of a civilization on, because I feel like it got them far enough. We might at least, now that I'm out of my children years, I could get to like 60 with just the one thing.
Just potato.
Yeah.
Potato, hey? So you're going for sure food.
No question.
Because you could probably get to 60. It's probably likely you'll get to 60 without ever seeing a medical professional. Likely. Like, what would kill you think? Cancer. Cancer's possible, but then
actually, this is good. This is a good way of thinking about it. Is if you're only allowing me to eat potatoes or just one thing, if I can't pick a granola bar or something that I could like get all of my nutrients, then you could do a little calculation, which is how long will it take me to die of nutrient deficiency?
Yeah.
And if it's like 10 years, then I'm better off just rolling the dice with the medical thing.
I guess you would have to do some serious consulting. See what you live longer.
Yeah, this is a hard one. My gut is I like if as long as I can do something like Soylent, which is like an all-in-one nutrient thing. Yeah. Then that one. If it's not, now I'm kind of back on the doctor thing. Yeah, because if it's Soylent, then you're like it's minor inconvenient, but it may be not even inconvenient. It's kind of like it's kind of nicer. I mean, talk about like less cognitive load. Yeah, you never have to decide what you need to eat. Right. I would like that. I mean, you could choose to do it right now. No, but I get bored. But I get bored if there's an option. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. If there's no option, then I don't have to think about it. I'm not like, I don't think I'm bored. I'm just gonna do something else. Yeah, boredom is the... I've did that game of Would You Rather, and I'm clearly not allowed to eat anything else. That's true. Yeah. There's always divine... Yeah, there's always questions about like, is there a guy holding your gun to your head? And I'm always like, yeah, there's just a random guy, and he's like, do it, pick one. It's gotta be divine. Divine. Like, the Greek gods are a real thing, and they've decided to go. Yeah, it depends what it is. Sometimes if it's like a sexual thing with like your parents or something, that people seem to gravitate towards often with Would You Rathers. Yeah, then it's a guy with a gun. Do that. No, we're past it. We only do one. Okay, just the one. Unless you have a back pocket one that you can pull out. No, nothing's coming to mind. But no, we've got an hour, so we have a lot of time. Yeah, we've got some time. Okay, so there's only 2 segments really. Okay. Oh wow, we're already done one. They're very short, but there's a lot of talking points. But the segments are just there for creating talking points, and then I usually have a few things that I like to go through, or that I've listed like talking points. This is a meta podcast.
Yeah, no, I never give the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting it right now.
Thank you for giving me the secret sauce.
Yeah.
See, listeners,
It's very complex
this
stuff.
is how much he trusts you.
It's interesting though, because I was thinking about, I did one podcast, right? Or like after one podcast, I started thinking about how do you formulate, like make them seem seamless, and because like think of like Joe Rogan, he does like 5 podcasts of 3 hours a week. Yeah, and I'm like, how does he never looks at anything, never does notes. He doesn't seem to, at least. He may have a laptop. You can tell. Yeah. But I think what he does is you understand the person, or you have some topics, and then you just align them like seamlessly, or like logically this topic can fit into this one, and then you can kind of see or understand when they're going to switch.
Yeah, often it's just like riffing off of whoever.
Yeah, it's probably very similar to being a comedian, and he is a comedian.
Yeah, I think it's probably a lot of this. I think it's maybe interviewing is a different skill set than being a comedian, but you can it'll like timing. The timing of both is like a skill set that overlaps.
That's interesting actually, because I think you're probably right. He's a really good interviewer, not a great comedian, but he's not very funny on his podcast either.
Yeah, it's mostly a timing thing. Like knowing when to either interject or not interject is probably the more important thing.
Because I see other comedians, and they're very good on podcasts. Comedians in general are very good on podcasts, but he's not. He's good in a different way.
I think being a host of a podcast and being on a podcast are two different skill sets.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think there's a selection bias to, you see comedians on podcasts being funny because they're not, their job is to be funny, right?
Right.
It's a performance kind of thing. Right. But to be a host of a podcast, you're one part's entertainment, one part air traffic controller, one part, master of ceremonies.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a different skill set.
A lot of the comedians I'm referring to have their own podcasts. Yeah. They're just guests. But you're right. They're definitely, it's interesting because they're better on their own podcasts. Or no, sorry, as guests of other podcasts than they are on their own podcasts. Yeah, it's like, because I think you're right. There's a different cognitive load that goes into being a host as well.
Yeah, and a lot of times their goal is to like get out of the way of their guests, like set up their guests,
right.
Or sometimes it's to be equals to their guests.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's just to have their guests make them look good.
Yeah.
Which is this podcast? You decide.
We'll have a poll at the end. Yeah. We'll have a poll.
Can we do live polls?
Yeah. So the second segment is I just do hot takes, and they're usually, this is where you saw the chef one.
Yeah. And I usually typically disagree with your hot takes.
They're usually poorly formed hot takes meant only for people to angrily reply to them.
You are admitting to being a troll.
No. I actually
That's my hot take.
Shout out Malcolm. I had this conversation with Malcolm today. Because it's not a troll if you actually have these opinions. I'm not saying them just because I am a troll. I actually believe them. I just haven't given them a lot of thought. They just appeared in my brain, and I'm like, I'll write that down. I'll bring it up later. I think that's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's acceptable. If you're not saying it just for the pure goal of getting a rise out of people.
I'm saying it because I believe it, and I think it'll get a rise out of people. It's controversial.
No, that's fair.
Why else? Why is have a podcast? And why are you gonna say interesting things?
That I use that. That's the plural noun of a group of guys.
Yeah.
A podcast of guys.
Right. Of what?
It's like a group of 3 to 4 guys is like a podcast of guys. It's the plural noun.
Is that yours, or is that a real thing?
No, that's
that's your hot take.
That's
your hot take.
Yeah.
Okay, my first hot take. I always want to give an example of a good hot take, though, because it is one I don't really believe, but it's anymore. But it was just like one that popped in my brain, and I was like, animals, if they were to disappear, would anything really happen? And I think there's a lot of things I'm missing out, like ecological disasters and stuff that would happen if like destabilization. I think so, but I was like, I made an amendment, but not including bugs. Just bugs can
stick around.
Yeah, would there still be? Probably still some really bad stuff would happen.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, probably.
I mean, even if you break down, so all of us are gone.
Yeah. You think we'd all die? Without bugs around, though.
Okay, so we're animals.
Yeah. Well, no, we're not.
Okay, so what you really
We all know
saying
what I'm
is,
talking about.
would humans survive if there was no other animals other than bugs?
Okay. Yeah. I also usually include like farm animals. I'm in wild animals. Wild animals and bugs.
Okay.
Or no, not bugs.
So there is no wild animals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What counts as a wild animal?
Like anything that's not domesticated.
Right. Okay. So we're left with like cows and chickens
Yeah.
and things like
Dogs,
that.
cats.
Would we be able to muscle our way through?
Yeah, we'd be fine. It'd be like sad.
I don't think the human species would go extinct,
Yeah.
but probably.
Oh no, you
there'd
don't
be
get
some
fish on Sundays.
I mean, there's domesticated fish.
Yeah, when you go to a lion, there's only bugs. Or when you go to the zoo, there's only bugs.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's probably some pretty heinous ecological. There'd probably be a lot of overgrown everything.
Mm-hmm. But you're like, it's a little gross.
Oh, you know what? We're also probably like massive ecological collapse because like birds
Yeah.
like transfer seeds. That's how like a lot of different plants propagate throughout the world.
Right, but we're pretty good at planting seeds.
But
That's not an issue we have.
But like, if a forest relies on natural
Right.
seed distribution from
Right.
wild animals, so like the Amazon rainforest,
Mm-hmm.
and we rely on the Amazon rainforest for.
But it doesn't rely. It helps. So like birds eating seeds helps, but it doesn't rely because like they just fall to the ground and wind takes them.
Yeah, but how do they get digested? So that's like one of the other things.
They don't need to get digested though.
So like
It helps. It helps because it does break down the outer barrier.
The whole point of a fruit though is for animals to eat it and move the seed away from the.
Yeah, like it helps, but does it end the world? It would be unfortunate.
I think probably we would be seeing some pretty big ecological collapse.
No, it's a terrible take.
I don't think we would go extinct.
Right.
I think a lot of people would probably eventually die. I'd be more worried about like there's probably some issues around with like the forest dying and therefore our oxygen carbon cycle getting screwed up.
Right.
I think that's
right.
going to be the big killer.
Yeah.
Rather than
it's like it probably wouldn't be like overnight. It's just gonna be like within like 30, 40 years, the impact is pretty large.
I think it's going to be pretty large.
You think it's
for sure
overnight though, or 30, 40 years?
I think overnight you would see an impact. I think where we all start to die.
Like, there's no more birds chirping all the time.
Yeah, I mean those birds
Waking me up.
worst. You know what? This is going to be one of those things where there's so many obvious like catastrophic things that are just right in front of us, and some poor ecology major is screaming at their screen right now. You didn't even think about the gophers.
Well, comment, subscribe.
Comment, subscribe. Yeah. All I'm saying is I think it'll be
Yeah. That's why I use it as an example. That's an example of a hot take because it's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense, but I clearly haven't thought about it a lot.
Yeah.
But an actual hot take I have is the more you like something, the less you like something. And what I mean by that is, so you're a DJ.
I am.
And when you're first getting into music, you probably really liked music, but now, far into your DJ career, hopefully not too far, but you now judge a lot of other music, or you have a more critical eye. So as you like something more, the scale of what you like kind of shrinks because you're more critical. You understand more theory, or you understand the process, and you kind of have a deeper understanding. So you dismiss stuff easier because you're like they're clearly doing this wrong, and it throws you off the enjoyment.
No, I don't think so.
No?
So like my appreciation for music has grown the more I learn about it.
Right.
And I find that I can appreciate music that I don't necessarily like more than I did before, because you can analyze it from a different perspective.
Right.
Like I don't love pop music, but there's a lot of things from like a songwriting or like a production side of things that you can learn from.
Right.
Even lyricism, things like that. Like there's like, so yeah, no, I don't buy it. I think like the more I think from like the shallow things, like you get less easy cookies.
Right. Right.
But at the same time, I don't know. Yeah, it's like I like a far more diverse spectrum of music now than I think I did.
Do you think there's any music that you liked as a kid or as a younger man that because you know more about music, you no longer like because you now see stuff they were doing wrong?
I don't know. I think that's a good question. I think there's music that you mature perhaps out of, because I think it can be sometimes tied to like an intense period of life.
For sure.
So I remember like when I was like 13 or 14 going to like punk rock shows and like going in the mosh pit and like crowd surfing and things like that. And like that's like music that is reflecting like a crazy hormonal time where you have too much energy and you're finally getting your first bit of independence. So it kind of, I don't necessarily listen to punk anymore, but I also like what made punk resonate with me at the time is not the same issues that I'm dealing with now.
Right.
So is that me not liking the music because I've listened to too much of it, or is it my tastes have changed based on my internal atmosphere?
Right. Yeah, there's for punk specifically, I still like emo punk, and that's completely nostalgia. I'm not sure if I would like it if I listened to it now, but I listen to it because it's totally nostalgic to listen to.
Yeah.
So that hasn't diminished.
There's
Stuff I have nostalgia hasn't diminished.
There's a few ska bands I go back to that were like my 13, 14, 15 ska bands that, thanks to the joys of the internet, I can now re-listen to. And and it totally still holds up. It just, it's not, I'm not out there searching for new punk or ska music anymore.
Well, not yet. Tonight,
not
though.
after this,
Tonight.
But hit me up with your suggestions, folks.
But I was thinking about it because I've noticed for two things specifically, for books and movies, that when I watch a new movie or a new TV show, I'm very critical of like, how are they introducing this character? How are they doing, like, is the dialogue right? Should the plot have gone this way, or did they misuse something in like as a plot device, or like I'm just understand more things about, I think, writing good fiction in both film and so that there's things that throw me off or make me annoyed really easily that I did not have before.
So I wonder if there's an element of, I wonder if this would be true. It's easier to consume music that you like and find music that you like than it is to consume movies and television that you like or respect.
Right.
Because it requires a much less investment. And I feel like I've got my Spotify algorithms and my SoundCloud algorithms trained really well. Like it
SoundCloud is an algorithm?
Oh yeah, everything's got and even if you just think about the algorithm as the weird mixture of people that you follow, I'm really choosy about who I follow because I want to make sure that when I go to my homepage, all of that is stuff that will be towards my tastes.
Right.
So I'm not going to follow, even if you're like a good friend, but you make like crazy dubstep, I'm not going to follow you because I don't want that polluting my feed. Sorry,
dubstep.
Sorry to all my dubstep fans. We're not following you. But
you know how many people made dub related Twitters and Instagrams and then had to change them 3 years later?
Yeah,
it's a lot of people in Edmonton.
I think everyone makes fun of dubstep. I like dubstep is actually like the search.
I don't mind dubstep.
It's like the deep stuff is really good work and study music. Like I listen to I'll put on mix, but it's got to be deep and it's got to be like the.
What does that mean by deep?
It's sort of like, you know how like techno, like sort of techno mixes can, and I mean techno, not like Dance Mix 95 techno, can kind of lull you into like a hypnotic state. Yeah. Because it's not like crazy builds and crazy things. Right. It's kind of like a more consistent kind of flow. Same thing with deeper dubstep where it's not in your face. It's all low frequencies. It's all very, very pelvis kind of music.
Pelvis. Yeah, like you want to move a little bit.
Yeah, it's it's very from the hips.
Yeah.
So it's very good nodding music. Like the dance floors are not like crazy mosh pits like you see from like the more EDM-y dubsteps. It's more a lot of like the entire crowd like swaying together rhythmically.
With their hips.
Yeah, with their hips. Yeah. So.
Okay, I got another hot take.
Hot take.
Coming in hot.
That was a good hot take. I like that.
Yeah. Individuality in youth is actually a mask for insecurity.
Individuality and youth
Yeah.
is a mask for insecurity.
Yeah. So what I'm going for there is that, when you're young and you look around at old people and you're like, how do they just like not get it? Like they're just all doing the same thing and like they're just like conforming and all this stuff. And then I think what's going on there, because you get older and you realize, oh no, those are smart things. They're smarter than me, and that's what they're doing. And you realize clothing is not like make these big statement pieces or like very loud stuff is not as important to your individuality as just being an individual. So I think what's going on there is you're trying really hard to be an individual because you're insecure about whether or not you're an individual or you're unique or important. And so as you get older, those like loudness claims of individuality kind of fade because you're not too concerned and you're not too insecure about presenting individuality.
So I think I agree with half of the premise.
Sure.
Because I do think insecurity and like youth are very closely tied. But I don't see insecurity. I see quite a lot of insecurity in people that are older.
For sure. For sure.
And I see the impulse to go towards what other people are doing is not always a choice made out of great experience or intelligence.
Right.
It's a choice made out of default bias.
Right.
So, there's an incredible push to follow whatever the societal social norms are of whatever 120 people you spend the most time around. So if you're friends with all the teachers or all teachers and you're all going to get a certain type of house and have kids around the same time, there's a lot of pressure to do that.
I think I overstated my premise by reflexively saying adults are doing something positive or confident when what they're doing, which I probably don't believe, but I just mostly am thinking about that this hyper individual like need is probably a mask for somewhat for insecurity.
I think there's definitely it's like it's the reaction. I mean, it's kind of like you want to be known as, especially as you leave like whatever parental or youth kind of formation period. You do want to kind of be like, this is me. This is my mark in the world. Yeah. It's funny. I mean, it's pretty clear that you don't know who you are when you're a young person.
Right.
I don't know. I'm 31 now. God, I'm 31 now.
Yeah.
Almost 32. And I feel like I'm just in the last couple of years starting to like settle into who I am, which has allowed me to become much more confident.
Do you think that statement, I am just settling into who I am, will ever be settled into who I am? Do you think that'll change, or do you think it's an almost for life?
I think
like you're just barely there and then you die.
I think no. I hope, and this is again some youth coming in. Is the people that I respect the most that are older have very changeable minds. They know who they are,
right?
But they also, with that comes like a very acute awareness of how much they don't know.
So that would play into more that you're almost who you are always. You're never settled in quite who you are. Because to be open-minded would be I'm not who I am yet. I'm open to other opinions of establishing my mind frame.
Yeah, unless you take openness as a fundamental trait of who you are.
Yeah.
So if you go like take it back one step further,
that's true. Yeah.
Because I've seen, you see it both ways. You see, older people that are very close-minded around a certain they can be really open-minded around some things and really close-minded about other things.
Yeah.
So but I do think insecurity is a huge putting yourself out there or being like, I don't know, what was the word? Like dressing crazily.
Yeah, being loud in your individuality.
But
everything's a statement.
But I suppose maybe it depends on what the motivation is behind it all.
Right. Yeah, I guess my claim really is the motivation is generally insecurity. I think.
See, if not, I could also see it from the opposite direction. Is you're push to dress conservatively is equally motivated from an insecurity standpoint.
I think that's probably true. Yeah.
Because like you know who I think about every time I think about someone who dresses exactly the way that they want.
Right.
Guess
who?
It's a friend of ours.
I don't know.
Quinn.
Show 'em
Quinn Crookshank.
Okay. Yeah.
Shout outs to Quinn.
Yeah.
She dresses exactly how she wants to dress. She dresses very incredibly and flamboyantly and theatrically, but with incredible style and
shout
not
out.
too out of the sure, absolute shout. But she is she's dressing exactly how she wants to dress.
Yeah.
And so that's not from a position of insecurity,
right?
Because she's probably one of the most secure people you'll ever meet.
I will say this, and it's reminding me of the quote, how to be confident. Pretend being confident. Never stop pretending. You know? And I think that's generally a state of human beings. Some people are just better at pretending. And I think the state of human beings is naturally insecure because we're mortal. We're going to die one day, so that we live in a state of insecurity. And I don't think there's ever a way, and that's what I'm saying, you're always almost who you are because you're always evolving. You're never the same person you were yesterday. You're just kind of a developing human for life, and then you die. So you never kind of get there, I don't think.
But would perhaps a different view on insecurity be? I see the word insecurity. It's almost like there's two words here where your overreaction to your internal insecurity is like a really common thing of people not being confident in who they are.
Right.
You can be
That's interesting. That's actually a very interesting point because people can be insecure and do the opposite of who they are because they're insecure about who they are.
Yeah.
People can be very embracing of who they are and still insecure, but it's a different type in some ways.
Yeah, and it is. I almost want to speak to the person that does. You can the idea of faking it till you make it.
Right.
There's like a public performance aspect of that.
Yeah.
And in the context of public speaking, truly, the more you just get out and do that and fake it and make it, that truly does, your fear of public speaking does erode for many people, not everyone, over time.
Yeah. It's interesting because people say stuff like, well, you can pull off anything. And I think those people don't realize everyone can pull off everything because pulling off is just doing it. And
that
for long enough
to me is I can pull off anything that's like someone showing their either insecurity or they are that's not realistic. You can't pull off.
No, I think the nature of pulling off is a long-term thing. So you may not be able to pull it off next time, but if you do it long enough, that's just your thing now.
Yeah, I see. I'm a big. I think people. That's an unhelpful view. Because can you pull off anything that you set your mind to?
What do you mean by? Well, I mean by pull off by clothing. That's what I mean. I don't mean pull off like heists. You know?
Oh, okay.
I mean clothing. Clothing.
Right.
I agree. It's unhelpful.
Yeah.
If I mean you can do anything. I don't believe in that term. I mean to pull off because it's a confidence thing. You're
I mean, I don't know. Is pulling something off something that you it's like you can't say I'm a very respected individual. Other people have to say that about you. You can't self-describe. I am.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I'm not sure
that. Yeah.
Clothing is the same. I think clothing, if you just do it enough, that's who you are.
I think you can if you can be okay with what you're wearing and be confident in what you're wearing.
That's why I think it's just long term because you might feel uncomfortable, but if you're eventually gonna do it enough and you get it comfortable, you're not pulling it off. It's about you. Are you comfortable wearing that?
I don't know. Is the phrase pulling off? Do you get to decide whether or not you're pulling off something?
I think so. I think that's entirely internal. I think it's a. Do you feel confident and comfortable in the thing that you're wearing?
Yeah.
Then you're pulling it off.
Does my opinion of you not pulling off this thing play any significance?
Significance is a good question to ask there, because I would have said it can, depending on my respect level for your ability to pull things off. You know what I mean? If I don't think you're killing it on a daily basis either, then I'm I don't really care too much about.
Yeah. It's like is everyone's opinion is the internal opinion the only one that matters when it's something that is super associated with, like, what's the point of fashion?
Right.
Like, the point of fashion is, well, actually, Ian, what is the point of fashion?
It's just an art form for self-expression.
Right.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. And just on a technical level, it's for covering up your private parts.
So there's like a social acceptation, being socially respectable.
Yeah.
It's also, it's signaling. There's a lot of social signaling.
Yeah, for sure. Like, do you group in with me? Which is a lot of probably is driving not just insecurity, but children's choice in clothing.
Yeah.
Are they fitting in? Do they want to be in this group?
So when a personal anecdote, because those are popular.
Yeah.
So I grew up partially in England. And,
okay, I did not know that.
I went to my mom's job, moved him back and forth from Canada to the UK, and so for this happened twice when I was a kid, and for the second time we were there for 2 years, and instead of sending me to a British school, they sent me to a American school in the UK, and all British schools have a uniform where everyone wears, all the guys wear the same thing.
Every single one.
Almost all of them.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
public schools, yeah.
Interesting.
I think all of them, actually.
It might be just a publicly mandated
It is a publicly
thing.
mandated
Yeah, okay.
thing. Yeah,
so that would make sense, yeah.
So, but my American
Which is
school,
North America, opposite.
Yeah, the American school, it had a dress code, which meant that we had to wear suits and ties and whatnot. There was a dress code. I would have far preferred the state-mandated uniform.
Right.
Because what the dress code showed in my gangly, like awkward teenage body is like, one, it showed the differences in wealth really quickly.
Right.
Or,
because you had to buy your own?
Yeah. And like it's dress clothes, right? So that's like, it can get pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And, also like I'm 13. My parents are not going to spend like a ton of money on a fancy suit for a 13-year-old.
Right.
Why would they? That's stupid.
Plus it's like 90s, so the fancy suit's like super baggy and huge.
90s.
Well, it would have been 2000. You're 2000.
It'd be in the
13.
early 2000s. Yeah. But even the way, it's just like I would have much preferred the not having to have like the class distinction or even just like the fashion distinction of everyone getting to choose what they wear in that context. I would have preferred.
It's kind of the worst of both.
It is the worst,
right?
It totally was the worst of both.
If you could choose, though, which one would you do? Not the middle worst, but the two ends where you can pick anything or uniform.
I think uniforms is the way to go for sure.
I think so. I think that's true because I think just from a poverty level, are picking on kids. You kind of want to reduce the things kids can pick on,
or even just like it does equalize. Like one, there's like a cognitive load thing.
Yeah.
Where like kids really can't focus on something as superficial as their clothing.
Yeah.
There's a financial distribution side of things where like if everyone's wearing the same stamp made, like, it decreases the financial distribution. I don't know. I'm sure there's studies about whether or not it helps people focus or not. There's something to be said. I know personally that even when I was working at home, like when I used to be like a contractor and work only at home, if I dressed up and went to my desk, which was, 10 feet away from my bed, I would have a different mindset going into that day than if I was just in the same clothes as I'd wear.
Yeah, I've heard of that for job interviews, that you should, even if like you're going to apply for jobs or like just sit at your desk and trying to find one, you should dress in a suit or something like that.
Yeah, it's like that kind of mental symbolism that you're shifting mindsets. You can do the same. Like it's all Pavlovian response stuff. If I'm wearing my XYZ clothing, that means I'm here to focus.
It makes sense because I know sometimes when I'm like writing and I haven't showered yet and I'm just not in like the wake up mode yet, and I would just go take a shower and then I'm like, all right, I'm back, I'm here. Or even coffee, same thing, as I just feel more in the writing mode if I have a coffee beside me.
Yeah. And like the ritual of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I've always wanted to try and like you can do that type of things. Like this is a common treatment with people with various anxiety problems. So they will, there's a lot of visualization. So visualizing a specific place over and over again. But then there's even like patterns that they could tap out, or different like physical stances that they'll adopt, because it sort of signals to the brain that this isn't the anxiety attack stance. This is the I'm a strong, powerful, control stance.
Right.
And it short circuits whatever attack is going.
Yeah, there's a lot of like kind of like psychology that's saying like standing up and just straightening your back is a good thing just to feel more confident.
Totally. Any sales call I do, anytime I'm doing any type of like media interview, I'm usually standing up. I'm usually walking, like pacing around my office or living room or anything like that, because like that's my cue for it's time to go.
Yeah. I'm a walker talker.
Oh man,
walker talker for sure.
I would love to. I should get like a step counter sometimes. Like
we once took a video of Scott. Have you ever seen it? In the boardroom, just doing laps. And he had like something like 60 some laps from the start of the video. He was walking before we started it too.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, just doing a sales call.
Me. Yeah, I want a tiny little loop around my office.
Yeah. Okay, I have a more contentious hot take.
Ooh.
I don't think it should be contentious though. Non-offending pedophiles should have greater access to treatment.
Let's do some definitions here.
Sure. So non-offending is someone who has a desire, or a pedophile has someone who's desire for children, but a non-offending in the fact that they do not want to offend. They have no desire to offend. They have an internal thing running them.
Yeah.
But they're consciously saying this is a bad thing. I do not want to slip up or do something.
Yeah.
So I want access to treatment, which that should be a good thing, or that should be not as frowned upon, or they should be more open to seeking treatment, or there should be some kind of, I don't think there is even an outlet, or I don't know what you would do in that situation.
So
there may be, and I just may not know this, but
so as far as I know, I think there is outlets through psychological services, mostly because I know that some choose like medically mandated chemical castration,
right,
where they essentially deal with the problem through removing all sex drive whatsoever. And I know that's almost always done within the context of an established, well, maybe it's not done always in the context of established medical community, but I know that is a path that some people do go down. I don't know in terms of counseling, like, so when you go to,
because I think there's a legal requirement for therapists to report people like that.
So I'm not so I'm trying to remember if this is the legal requirement for them to report if they've got a legal requirement if they think self-harm is imminent,
right,
or harm to others,
right.
I think that's how it works. Right. I do not know if someone was to confess to that within the patient,
right,
like feeling these things but never acting on it, never going online, or anything like that.
Right.
I don't know what that would. I don't know what the legalities are.
And from what I know, there's no specialization or real specific outlet. So you'd probably have to go to a regular therapist and then admit that, which would probably be very tough, and then get referred to somebody else. I'm not sure. I have no idea.
Because presumably this is actually something that comes up in psychology practices and things like that. The question I'm kind of interested right now is, why does there seem to be a weird Venn diagram overlap with people in power and pedophilia?
Is there a weird overlap, or is that almost specifically like in the Catholic Church?
Well, so there's the Catholic thing.
Yeah.
So and there's a lot of like studies on why why do predators end up in the Catholic Church?
Right.
There's a lot of different reasons for that, but I just think about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, and like the Prince Andrew, and just the idea that potentially at the highest realms of political power, there's a guy
there's a distinction there though, right? Because they're young women, like,
but they were underage.
13, 14, 15. Which is not the technical pedophile term, is it?
It is the technical.
I think that
definition.
prepubescent is a technical.
Nope.
No.
Nope. Still pedophilia.
That's a legal definition. Is probably under 18, I think. or under 16 or whatever the age of consent is. But I think the technical definition is prepubescent.
I think
They shouldn't have any sexual puberty in hormonal changes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I think it's pretty, like, again, the different, like, the whole argument, I thought this 17-year-old was 18.
Yeah.
Let's throw out that case
Sure.
and just focus on the fact that they were sleeping with 13-year-olds.
Right.
To me, a 13-year-old is so clearly a child
Right.
that it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
a pedophile is a pedophile is a pedophile. You know, like you're
I think because even from a psychology point of view, it would be different, because that puberty thing is very important from a psychological point of view.
But
because you're attracted to women who've gone through any hormonal changes. You like the prepubescent, so they have no sexual characteristics, and they're usually not gendered either. It's usually about age. So children.
But again,
of either sex, it's not a.
So let's make it easier and just like say that they were only abusing people that were under the ages of 16, because there was many of them that were. Why? And regardless of whether or not you want to call them pedophile or some other kind of file,
right? I think there is a word.
You know,
I can look it up.
Pre-teenophile. I don't know. Either way, it speaks to a similar type of. Either like mental flaw or mental characteristic that, and maybe it's equally represented in all layers of society, but I do not understand how,
the reason I think there's a different, because I want to answer your question, and so I think it's important to make a distinction to answer your question.
I mean, let's go.
Yeah, I think it's important, but the only reason I think it is important, because you said, why do powerful people? And I think that's the answer right there. Is because they're powerful and they like power dynamics, and these people are just very innocent and young, and then they're doing something against the law to be powerful. Right. It's like they're breaking the law knowingly because they're this powerful person and they do whatever the fuck they want.
They're picking the biggest gap in power dynamic they could possibly
I think so.
see.
I think it's like a fuck it, we do whatever we want, we're powerful kind of thing. Right. And then that's what, and I think why it's important to make a distinction with pedophiles and that, because I think they are post-puberty generally. They might be young, or at least have some puberty-like characteristics. So I don't think it's a pedophile thing. They're not attracted to children. It's a power thing. And I think that's why I want to make the distinction to answer your question.
So it would be interesting to know, like, I, again, do not know, and, like, if there is a distinction between what you are saying and pedophilia. To me, like, what are the motivation for this type of thing? Like, clearly reprehensible behavior.
Yeah.
And is this a selection
hebephilia?
Bias? Yeah. Gross. See, I knew it was going to be a philia of some sort.
Yeah. Is it hebephilia? I thought there was another word. Ephebophilia. Yeah, that's ephebophilia is 15 to 19, and hebephilia is 11 to 14. So they should be some pubescent. So that's why I think there was a technical distinction.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it matters. Like, but like, I think what I'm more interested in is like, one, is there, why does this seem to be a consistent problem in our society? One that has probably been there forever. But we are now starting to get a glimpse of how. And I think that's how intense it is.
That is what it would be. Is it's maybe it's that powerful can do it.
Yeah, is it because they can get away with it?
Yeah, is it a chicken or egg kind of thing? Is it?
So I suppose the question is, what do you do with it?
What do you mean? What do you do? Like,
what do we do with the information that at the highest levels of power, there is a certain amount of protection? I suppose maybe that's not even that useful of a question. Is I wonder. I would love to talk to someone that has seen it happen and understand why they didn't speak out about it, or maybe they did speak out about it and nothing whether happened.
Yeah,
I'm just kind of interested.
It may be another thing too, because we brought up an interesting point: people of not speaking out, and so maybe that powerful people can diminish people's power to speak out, and so those people get away with it for longer, so it collectivizes in those people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe the future will be much brighter for this type of thing because so many more people are speaking out about it.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of, there probably is like a, with Me Too, I bet you stuff like that also came more to light.
Oh, super. So much good stuff.
Yeah.
Good, like so much important information came to light, even though, like
societal self-reflection.
Oh, it's super important.
Yeah, which is a benefit.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't think that is as hot a take as it used to be. I think more people are generally in line with that logic.
Well, I just don't know. Like, I can't really answer the hot take. What was the original question?
Non-offending pedophiles should have greater access to treatment.
Yeah, I just don't know what access they have right now. So
that's true.
I can't say yes or no.
Yeah.
I think that.
I know this has been an issue in the past that I've read about, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it came up recently in my mind, but I don't know if things have improved since I've looked into it.
I mean, I think probably, I know nothing about this, but probably offending pedophiles need.
I think mine started with a documentary.
Just as much treatment.
That's true. It is interesting. Yeah, I think I saw a documentary 6 years ago, but I can't remember what the name was. But it is interesting because I was thinking about conversion therapy. And there's this idea of, well, does it work at all? Right? And so that would be somewhat in line with conversion therapy, would it not?
No.
No, you don't think so? Because it is a sexual attraction that you're trying to adjust through therapy.
I think the goals are different.
Well, the goals are changing. Yeah, that's a good point. The goals are different. The goals are different because the goal is to make sure you don't offend.
Yeah.
And the other one is to actually change it. That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Well, or I think it's more the premise of the therapy is wrong in one. Like conversion therapy, the premise is wrong. Mm-hmm. Like the premise is that that gay people don't. It's not a thing. Mm-hmm. Like you that's not intrinsic. You can be taught away from being gay.
I think you probably I think it's similar in that because I don't think they can actually change you, but I think they can make you not offend in the gay sense, which would be the same goal, but obviously they're trying to change you actually.
Well, I suppose then maybe it would go for the tactics used will create in conversion therapy create cycles of self-denial, right, which are ultimately catastrophic. That's a really good point. So I think maybe if you were treating a non-offending pedophile, you would want to create cycles of acknowledging what those negative negative thoughts are or stimuli, being able to pick them out and then consciously saying no to them or mastering them, rather than trying to create an illusion that they don't exist in the first place. Right, which is the difference there. They're trying to create an illusion that they don't exist, and they're implicitly telling you these are bad thoughts and you're a bad person for having them. And not in the pedophile, but in the conversion of homosexuality. There's probably going to be a bit of both on both examples. Well, I think it's just probably what would work. Right. Because the conversion therapy does not work. Yeah. Because it always happens where, some youth minister who says that he was gay, then went to conversion therapy, then gets caught giving a hand job at Denny's. You know what I've always thought? Because you just said how it's intrinsic. I do think some gay men are environmentally homosexual, but I also don't think. I'm not touching that. Yeah, but I don't think. I think it's. I do not agree with you. No, but I think it doesn't matter. I don't like I had this joke where it's like it doesn't matter if it's genetic, environmental, or just because it's Tuesday. I like to suck dicks. Like it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like it's just it makes no difference, and I think it weakens the argument to say it's intrinsic and we can't help it because it doesn't matter if you can. Right. I don't think people that are gay would agree with the statement that they are environmentally gay. Right. Because that undermines the foundation of their, like, who they are. I don't think it does, because I think who you are is a conglomeration of genetic and environmental factors. I think how it expressed is an environmental thing. Right. Like how someone expresses themselves is a subject of biology and culture. So, but I don't think their underlying biological traits are Like, I think that's actually like all of the science is on the one side
That is genetic?
that it's genetic.
I wouldn't think so. One, I know they've never found a gay gene. That's never been discovered. So I don't know how it would be only environment or only genetic. And
So absence, like you can't use the absence of.
no, you can't. But you can't also say it's been proven since they haven't found anything
Well, I think
that is related.
like
A genetic marker.
I think yeah. Again, two dudes that are not scientists talking about
Right.
science. Anything that I've read, and certainly any person from a queer background,
Mm-hmm.
it is so clear that that is the underlying personal, like that's them. It's not an expression. Like straight people can express, can be it's fluid, things like that. Can be, people can have a fluid sexuality, but if you're, I don't think it's environment. I really don't think it's an environmentally.
Why would you think it
motivated.
would make a difference? Why would it make a difference if it was environment? Because to me it weakens the argument because it's implying that because you can't help it, it's something different. But it's like if you just choose to be, I don't see any issue with that either. I actually think that is a stronger argument that there's nothing wrong with it, choice or not. And so that's a stronger argument. By saying it's not a choice, I actually think it weakens the argument for acceptance.
I think I would fall in the. I'm with you on that. It doesn't matter.
Right.
In like if
Yeah.
if you like it's the same thing with genders. Like to me it's a deeply uninteresting argument on what people should be allowed to call themselves. Like if someone's gender is fluid, it's up to them to decide.
Sure.
Same thing with sexuality.
Sure.
I think what people express as their sexuality versus what is their internal wiring is also like, what are we going to do? Like have like a gay test? No. Like it's whatever you are.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no it just seems like an irrelevant thing to me whether it's environmental or genetic, and I'm not sure why that's a point is really what the point I'm making.
I think it's probably the point is important to make in the context of bigotry.
I think it's so I agree that is why the point comes up, but that what my point is I actually think it weakens your argument to say I can't help it rather than it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
it's not inherently bad whether I can help it or not.
It's an either or.
But I think
they're almost never saying like the argument for queer rights is never we can't help it.
Well, not in those words.
The argument is always we deserve equal respect.
Yeah, and I think
and how you come to identifying that community is, as you say, unimportant.
Yeah, I agree. I think and just like self-reflecting right now, I think it may come from the right and their desire to say it's not natural. It may be a reflexive argument to say we're born with it because they're saying it's not natural. So it may be a defensive argument.
I think there's probably plenty of arguments. Like you need to deploy different arguments to win different arguments.
Right. That may be why it comes up as an argument.
So there's research out of the University of Calgary that made headlines a couple years ago, which indicated that there was some genes that are associated with expression of greater fertility in female relatives of gay males. There was an overlap in those genes. So there was some indication, and I haven't read the study in a long time, and I do not know if it was later disproven. This was a couple of years ago, but the idea was that so there is potentially some both evolutionary and biological grounding for
sure.
why someone would be homosexual.
Yeah. Well, I would say I would never make the argument that it has nothing to do with genetics.
Yeah, no,
But only, and I'm only going off general. Almost anything in psychology seems to be some kind of combination of environmental and genetic factors. Almost every topic in psychology.
Yeah,
almost everything that makes up who you are as a person.
I think we're going with identity and like the line between identity and biology. I think when you talk about identity, it becomes by necessary like a question of environment and biology and how they intermix. But when you talk about like the pure biological roots of something, then I don't think the environment. Well, it's you can be a lot more confident in
right, but
the environmental or the biological underpinnings of something.
As a follow-up for why I think environment is because I also think it's somewhat of a spectrum. So depending on your environment, it's good because I think it's a spectrum. It's going to adjust it a little bit.
Well, I think your expression of it could.
Yeah.
If you're in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Where if you're found out to be gay, you're beheaded or stoned to death. Yeah, you're not going to exhibit as many characteristics publicly.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're that. So I don't think, but that's not any indication on the biological reality.
Right.
Like the two are separate.
Right. But yeah, it'd be interesting to do a study, but it'd be very difficult in. I don't know. I don't know how you would figure that out. Yeah.
It's also just kind of unimportant.
That's my entire point, really.
Yeah.
It's unimportant which one it is.
But it is important. Like I think, again, like we're lucky enough to be quite far along compared to a lot of places in the world in terms of just general acceptance of people of different kind of sexual backgrounds. But I think it's important to keep on like toe the line, so to speak, on this is not a other group that chooses it for sinful reasons.
Yeah, I would never say choice.
But no, but
yeah.
so much of the world still believes that.
Right. Yeah, because environment has nothing to do with choice.
Yeah.
It's environmental factors that affect who you are has zero to do with choice. Those are factors actually outside of your control, the environment. In fact, that's a good prelude to the free will argument, is that both genetic and environment you don't have control over.
Next week you'll be hearing a free will argument.
Yeah, not for me. I'll be a pro free will. Pro free will. So you did have a gripe to pick with me.
Did I have a gripe? Oh, I did have a gripe.
For chefs.
Yeah. So what's your let's break this down. What's the hot take that gave me a gripe?
The hot take was that I think as far as arts go, I would put chefs, while I respect them greatly for their ability and their technique, relatively near the bottom as far as arts go. Now,
that was not the hot take that you did.
Well, because
you were running back from your original statement
because they're aggressive. They're aggressive sometimes, and I think watching it back, I would like to make clear that I do respect chefs. I just, as far as arts go, I don't think they're near the top, and it's because I have a certain qualifications where I think arts are.
Okay, so I was not griping with Ian's list of favorite arts.
Sure,
I was griping with Ian claiming that food is not an art form and does not have the capacity to be an art form.
I think
culinary food, I should say.
I still am not sure if I think it is an art form.
What makes an art form an art form?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this after, and the only reason I was thinking I'm not sure I'd said I didn't think it was an art form at the time, but the only reason I'm adjusting slightly is because I have this idea that art is really whatever the person who made it decide that's art. Generally, that seems to be what art is. You decide it's art. Nobody else does. You, the person who made it, gets to decide is that art or not. And I think that I'd probably take that on as true.
Yeah, if you could say that.
Yeah. And I'm not sure.
You could also say that other people get to decide what's art.
Well, yeah, you could, but I'm.
But also, even just using even if we don't want to go down the self-determinant kind of path.
Sure.
What components, what disqualifies it from being an art form?
So in my opinion, there's three major parts of art.
Yes.
And did you hear this part?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and I think it goes emotional, intellectual, and aesthetic.
Yes. And how does
I think
food preparation, culinary food, not hit every one of those?
So for me, intellectual, there's not an idea, there's not a message in a lot of art or a lot of food.
Is there a message? Actually, that's not true. 'Cause you can have messages in food.
You can, but generally.
But that's not functional. Because like you could say that there's not a message in.
Now that's why I reformed it to saying it's one of the lower art forms. I put it in the hierarchy of art forms on the lower end because I'm not sure not having a message disqualifies you either. I think that's the components of great art.
But
those three.
Like, so food can have an immense emotional resonance with people.
Yeah, not intellectual though.
But
emotion is different, and I think a lot of the emotion you get is generally when it's like a physical emotion, or it's just like nostalgia, or it's reminding you of something.
So why?
And that's not intentional. The reminding. That's more an internal thing happening.
Why couldn't it be? So if you do a play
give me
on, so this is fairly common where it is. They'll chefs will do a play on a classic home style family dish.
Sure.
So they are taking, maybe the nostalgia of what something that your mom or dad cooked at home, and reinterpreted it in with different ingredients or different contexts or different cultures.
Right.
And then they presented it visually in a very aesthetically pleasing way. How could that not be described as, an artistic experience?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right that there are definitely opportunities to be very artistic with art.
So I think
with food.
I think what you're running into, where it's leading you down the path of the difference between why it's not art, is because you're running into the difference between art and design.
Right.
Some food is art. Some food is design.
Right. Yeah,
design I think design is artistic, creativity in the service of business or the service of something else.
Interesting.
Its goal is not artistic goal. Its goal is it doesn't have its own
it's functional.
It's functional.
It's functional.
And a lot of food is functional.
Right.
But some food is art.
Right. Yeah, and so I think a lot of the hot take comes from my own thought of food as merely functional generally.
I think that's again, it's the art versus design. It's like
that's an interesting, it's an interesting rebuttal. I think you're right, and I think I would 100% retract that it's not art.
Great.
100% retract that it's not art.
You can have a long form discussion with someone, and you can change minds.
Yeah, I think
let's all be nice to each other.
I think I will commit to its art, but then I had a follow up question for you.
Yes.
And you can say no because I don't know if you want to offend anyone. But what would be your top 5 arts? What would you relate? And that's how I would probably position them is those 3, because I think those 3 are in order as well of importance.
Top 5 arts in my personal interest.
Yeah, 100%. Your personal.
Okay.
What you like the most. So that's an easy thing not to offend anyone. It's just what you personally enjoy the most.
Yeah, sure. I think it probably goes without saying music.
Yeah.
I'm an auditory person.
Yeah.
In disposition. Second would probably be like experiential. So events, theater, like experiential art. I think that has a really big effect on me. I think comedic arts. If you could subcategorize that, I think satire,
very underrated art. I think.
Well, I think
comedic arts,
satire and humor have a super important role in establishing boundaries and saying things that can't be said by everyone or can't be said in so many different conversations.
It's interesting because people don't qualify comedy a lot of times as art, and so they put these barriers on what comedians can and can't say, where they would not do that with
comedians
art
can
forms.
Say whatever they want,
right?
They're just not free from people not agreeing with them.
Yeah, but there are some people who like to deplatform the comedians as well.
I can't think of too many comedians that have actually been deplatformed.
I would agree with you because I actually had your take. I had your take that it's the outrage about comedians not being able to say is a little bit overblown because Shane Gillis is a good example. The SNL, he was going on SNL, and then he used a racial or Asian slur, and then he was fired before he was hired. He was hired, then he was fired before he ever started.
Right.
But then I just heard him on a podcast talking about how he's selling out shows now. He never did before. It's like the counter.
Yeah. Also,
movement
like,
is-
if someone in the like, I know nothing about Shane Kills.
Yeah.
What he
Yeah,
said
yeah.
or what he
Yeah,
stands
yeah.
for. I do not know anything about him.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have a right to be on SNL.
Yeah, I agree.
So like,
Agreed.
he also wasn't deplatformed. Clearly.
Yeah, well, you could say because deplatform would be he was removed from that platform, but he was somewhat deplatformed.
No, when people say deplatform, they mean they no longer like what they mean is like they no longer have either a way of making a living doing what they do, or they have no way of.
They're talking about specific instances because they use it very commonly when people are coming to schools, and then they're not allowed to come to school anymore. They're using that they're saying deplatformed in reference to that specific appearance.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Generally, it's using specific appearances, deplatforming from that platform, not in general. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right that's not really happening because people in this day and age, it's interesting. There's the outrage of deplatforming, but in this day and age, it's almost universally easy to get a platform.
Yeah. I just like also with the deplatforming thing is that a lot of the people that cry deplatforming, they don't seem to be being deplatformed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And in this day and age, it's so easy to get a platform that it's deplatforming is not really a thing. It's that you're getting platform from that or deplatform there, but you almost because you got deplatform got a bigger platform over here.
Yeah, which is kind of maybe gross in its own way.
I will say I don't agree with deplatforming though, because I think generally ideas that run counter to your ideas are good things.
I don't know. It's that's the thing is like, does anyone have a right? So if I don't know, I see the fear of it, and I can totally understand it, and I can also understand if you're Milo Yiannopoulos and you're doing a speaking tour and you have been, wolf whistling for white supremacists and, some of the most reprehensible ideas in our culture, that if a crowd of people that are protesting what you have said on other mediums block you from entering a theater or things, like, I understand how that's deplatforming, but I also... I like there's a certain amount of cause and effect there that, like, I think maybe where it comes the worst is where it's easy in cases like Milo, in my mind, is like Milo is really clearly someone that is...
He's a provocateur.
He's a provocateur.
Yeah. He's saying things that inflame the right and inflame the left, inflame the right towards racial supremacy, and so I totally get what you're saying, and I get the reaction from people. I totally understand. But I do think it's an initial reaction that is not actually helping. It actually, like I said, the deplatforming grows the platform. Yeah. Right. So
I mean, he made a career out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. He's a provocateur for a reason. Yeah. Because it works. It works, and he probably gets new followers or new people from deplatforming. It's the idea that when you ban all speech, the speech goes underground and it grows there. Whereas when you can put in a light, you can distill it, argue it, debate it. You're not scared of it. Because I think when people who have these initial like dark racial thoughts, when they see it like banned or pushed down, they start to feel victimized and like maybe they have a real just cause. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where there's the strategic move where I feel like it is not a good strategic move for people like I would consider myself on the left. I consider myself like very socially open-minded. It's Same. Not a great strategic move to completely shut off. Like, we need to be able to have public conversations with people that we disagree with.
Right. Like Jordan Peterson's, I think, is a good example because I don't think he's personally, I don't enjoy him, but I don't think he is a hateful person or as much as he's painted as he is. And I think he's someone who has thoughts that are maybe worth arguing. And so someone like Milo, maybe they're not worth arguing, but Jordan, maybe
that's
it
the
is.
thing. Is like, I mean, I think he's, love him or hate him, who he is and who he represents and the amount of people deserve to be publicly debated.
Mm-hmm.
And like anytime he has a public debate, you know, there's a certain amount of tribalism that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, people that buy into him for whatever he represents, they're going to go with him no matter what.
Right.
But there is a whole bunch of people that anytime you have a public debate, there are a whole bunch of people that are exposed to the ideas for the first time.
Right.
And, you know, it's good to put them in the context of maybe not this is the absolute source of truth.
Mm-hmm. Because I bet you a lot of people who are interested in his ideas will now go look up his ideas in like a more singular fashion where they're not being openly debated or...
Well, I think he's probably been far more... He's got a platform because he's been so attacked.
Right,
like,
for sure.
He is probably, you know... He's not the philosopher that would have been, you know, changing our world 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's not an idiot. He's certainly not an idiot, and he's you know, he's a very well educated and very experienced writer and thinker. But I just can't imagine him generating the same amount of reach or platform or audience in a time before he was attacked. Like I almost sometimes I feel like the left creates its own biggest enemies.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying when people are crying about deplatform, like the right's crying about the deplatforming. At the same time, it is creating bigger platforms.
Yeah,
because a lot of people on the right are riding the deplatforming to the top of their own platform.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe that becomes that's a worse situation where now we have completely divided.
Right. And from a strategic point
sources,
of view, you're letting them write their own narrative of their rise rather than debating them where you can.
Well, also I think the thing that we get wrong the most is if someone we don't like has a good idea,
right,
we disagree with it.
Right.
And I think that's where the left shoots them, like from a political standpoint or a strategic standpoint. We shoot ourselves in the foot most because...
I would say the left and the right do that, but because we're on the left, I think it's probably better to point our fingers at
I don't think the right gets penalized for it.
Right.
I think like the left specifically because...
What do you mean by penalized?
In the sense we often believe that... Like there's the moral high ground in terms of more social rights and more freedom, like you know, more freedom of choice and expression. But if say someone makes a perfectly valid point but disagrees with, like it's a maybe not a great. I can't think of a good example right now, which is
I can think of an example.
What?
Jordan Peterson has this thing where you get your own life together first before you think about changing the world. And I think that's not a bad message. He's mostly talking about kids where it's like you're 18, most of you can't handle your own life. Before you have these big sweeping ideas of how society should run, probably look after your own self and then look to fix the world. He's not saying don't fix the world. He's saying it'll probably benefit you more to clean. That's a clean your room thing. Clean your room first and then figure out how to fix the world.
Yeah, see, I mean that's like such innocuous, like Instagram level philosophy.
Yeah, it's not insightful or anything, but it's like that's not a horrible thing, but it became this like nefarious thing that's associated with him.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like it's just so.
It's very vanilla.
We're giving
I think
too much power.
Yeah.
Like it's just far too much power to this guy.
Yeah, because that became a huge thing that he's known for. Is like self-responsibility, but it's like it's such a vanilla, like armchair therapist kind of thing where, yeah, that's all self-help books tell you that. That's not an insightful thing to say. And I think that's kind of like a big wrap up of Jordan Peterson. A lot of things he's saying is not insightful, but he wraps it in this like jargon, this professor jargon.
Or it could just be like you could say it from a different person could say it and not have the same reaction.
Yeah, I like how the innocuous. It's an innocuous statement, and a lot of times his statements are innocuous, but they are blown up because he has his hype.
Yeah, I don't know if the context that and again I know nothing of the controversy. So is the context, and maybe you can help me out with this, is the context that he's saying that you can't have a meaningful contribution to bettering the world unless you have whatever he defines as your shit together.
I think there is some controversy there, where he's implying that kids, the youth who are very postmodern and they have these Marxist ideas or these socialist values, they don't really know what they're talking about because they can barely keep the room clean.
Right.
Which I don't think that's true or is a fair assessment.
Yeah, it's just kind of like really ham-handed because it's so disprovable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Like, there's so many different ways that it's like, whose metric of cleaning the room are you going by?
Right.
Also, there is such a long list of people with all kinds of physical and mental ails throughout history that have enacted massive positive social change and economic change and political change. Like, having all your shit together has nothing to do. Again, the thing that he's getting, like, who you are and what your ideas are don't necessarily have to be in alignment.
No, there is the trope that like the therapist who is their life's a mess, but they help a lot of people, right? But they can't help their own problems.
Totally.
Doesn't mean their opinions about therapy and how you fix them are invalid.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think his own argument is invalidated by itself.
Right.
Because you either at what point is... Yeah, that's why it's dumb. Like, I could see why people would be like, this is dumb, but it doesn't... It's more just dumb than anything.
Yeah. I feel like that's what I said, because he had these 12 laws or something in his book.
Yeah.
And one of the laws is like, speak simply and clearly.
Right.
But I was like, he's known for just never speaking clearly or speaking simply. He just talks around issues and says rather innocuous things that seem deep and meaningful, but it really are pretty vanilla.
I mean, I think speak simply and clearly is great advice.
Yeah, no, it's not bad advice.
That's like everything. You're a copywriter. You're a writer.
Yeah.
That's George Orwell's. Big tenet for writing. Be a very clear and simple writer.
Yeah.
There's much more strength in brevity and simplicity. One of the verbal, though, always associated with one of the reasons why Trump plays well with certain groups of people because he speaks very plainly. And there is
he's one of us kind of idea.
There's that kind of thing. And you've seen it. You see it in a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Like you see people on both sides if you can make complex subjects simple or even speak plainly to a wide group of people, there's a lot of trust that you can engender in people. So like that seems wise.
Yeah.
But is there another shoe that's going to drop on the other side of it?
Yeah, it's not particularly deep or meaningful really either. That's like you said, that's pretty well received and known advice.
Yeah, I just wonder if you put someone else's name on that book, if it would have made any wave whatsoever.
Right.
Or if it was just people, the whole thing is just people hearing that there's this controversial figure. He wrote this book, and then a bunch of people being like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to like this book, but actually I agree with it because it's all pretty innocuous."
Yeah. But
and then a whole bunch of people that are like, "You know what? This is all super innocuous stuff. What's the big deal about this guy, anyways?"
But I think at the same time, teaching people personal responsibility not a bad thing. And I wonder, from what
it's a great thing.
From what I've read, a lot of lost men. Like just young lost men who didn't know what they're doing with their life and stuff like that, read his book or listened to and found some kind of meaning in their life, which I think is maybe a positive thing.
Totally. I mean, of course it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe interesting. Again, it's just like the media environment and the social media environment is there, have we created a boogeyman out of a
a moderately intelligent therapist who's
wrote a
decently
book
well read and educated.
Like yeah. You sort of see like sometimes the bigger platform they get, the more opportunity they get to say crazy things.
Right.
Which I feel like if you give anyone a big enough platform and make them speak constantly in public, they're going to say some crazy shit.
That's an interesting thing too, because maybe you start to buy into it or search for like what made you get that exposure or that hype, and then so you start to look for, okay, I got to start saying a little crazier things, and I may not like these hot takes. I may not believe them fully, but I know they'll get a little reaction. So let's kind of I can believe them somewhat, and let's see if I can say them and see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember when Ezra Levant he was always kind of a bit of a wonk and like a bit of a provocateur, but when he was first like pre-ethical oil, you know, he was not who he is today.
Right.
He is, you know, the closest thing that we have to like a Rush Limbaugh kind of like extremist, crazy, you know, he's, you know, a provocateur in the same way that Milo is in many ways, but he didn't used to be that way.
Right.
He used to be a lot less extreme, a lot less like the worst days of Fox News or the worst days of Breitbart. Much more conspiracy theory now, because I kind of feel like he's just for the last 6 years been talking into a microphone, coming up with random shit in order to get clicks. Like,
that's what I was gonna say. It's probably a factor of social media dictating what your identity kind of becomes, because you're like, oh, this really inflammatory out there thing, that's what got a lot of shares. I'm gonna do more of that. And then by doing more of that, I start to believe that's who I am, and then I start to do more of that, and you become this caricature of yourself.
Yeah, there's a cartoonist that is particularly insufferable because of who he's become. Douglas Adams.
Yeah, I know.
Of Dilbert.
Yeah.
He is now like. Yeah,
I knew you were gonna say that too. Actually, right when we said cartoonist. Yeah. So that's how insufferable he is.
Yeah. And it's you know it's weird because I've actually read a few of his books.
Yeah.
One of them which talks about how, you know, how his many failures taught him things, and it's actually a really good book. Like there's like a lot of it's kind of his life story and his business story about all the things that he failed at.
Right.
None of his political views. It's like I think it's pre those days he wrote it, and then I was like, okay, he's got another book, and it kind of just talks about his story on how he became like a Trump booster.
Right.
And a good chunk of it is talking about he you know, this weird feedback mechanism where he realized that every time he wrote about Trump, he'd get this.
So he's being self-aware in this identity shift.
Well, he would get this massive feedback from Trump supporters of like, "Thank you for finally validating what we believe,"
right?
While also simultaneously getting like from his friends, but like, "What are you talking about? What are you doing at?" And this weird mixture, and you can almost see him. He doesn't go out and say it, but like, you almost see that like he got addicted to the limelight.
Right.
Which pushed him further into it, which pushed him like he's doubling down on this the
But I bet you as an intellectual person you start to tell yourself stories like, I actually believe what I'm saying, and then you start to believe it because you don't want to be just a shield to your engagement or your likes. You want to actually intellectually respect yourself.
Totally.
And so you have to start to tell yourself you believe what you say, or self-justify the things you're saying.
So I think, I mean, it's interesting, you know, he might have pushed himself further into this weird position where I couldn't actually finish the book. It was atrocious because, you know, his whole position is that Trump's actually this like genius mastermind strategist.
Yeah, I've seen him talking about that part. I once spent like a couple hours watching his YouTube channel, and then his all predictions, all his stuff, and what he's going to do, and he's kind of like analyzing what Trump's doing. And I mean, a lot of it, I think maybe he done some of it, but
it's really interesting examples of, again, it's the whole thing. If you take 1,000 darts and you throw them,
you're gonna get a couple.
You're gonna get a couple right, and no one will remember the ones that you don't hit. It's the pundit problem,
right?
Like almost they've done all these studies on predictions.
I see it in basketball terms. I watch a lot of basketball and listen to a lot of pundits in basketball, and it's like you only remember the times they really got it right because they say a lot of stuff wrong.
Or the fallacy of when people are hot.
Yeah. In basketball, does it not exist? That's interesting. I don't know that, but from what I think exists, I think it does exist, but I could not say.
So it's the perception that it exists,
right?
But you know, this is in one of the Freakonomics books.
Do they talk about basketball?
They talk about the phenomena of being hot on a hot streak,
right?
And whether or not that's a real thing,
right,
or if it's just a weird sampling thing where you think that they're on a hot streak, so anytime that they score one, you attribute it to the hot streak, and every time they miss a basket, you forget about it.
Right. I love basketball, so I'll here's why I think it exists.
Why? Okay. By the way, if anyone who's watching this knows me, they know how little I know about sports.
But so there's a very clear distinction between practicing and playing. And even in simple things like free throws. Do you know what a free throw is?
I do know what a free throw is.
So nobody, I don't think, has ever gotten over 95% free throw percentage in a season. But in practice, you can almost hit, like a lot of guys can hit 99 in practice because the pressure is different, right? So there's a psychological difference, right? And there's a psychological effect, obviously, in basketball, and quite a large one, it would seem. So when you're hot, that would affect your psychological perception of confidence. When you're practicing, your confidence is much higher. There's not much stake. So that's why I think it would exist, because a psychological difference of being hot and not hot.
So the problem is you've got an observer bias.
Right.
So that the whole thing is that the term someone's hot is a label done by announcers on people in the moment.
Right.
Which is and the problem the study again eventually concludes is that there is no one, you don't know what's going on in that person's head. So what you're saying, while it could be true, what the study is saying is that there's no statistical difference between the amount of baskets scored by someone who's on a hot streak and say someone.
Well, you'd have to look at the same person probably.
And that's what they did.
But my argument there would be you can tell, and it's maybe observer bias or confirmation bias, because I can remember the times that it's happened. But you can tell that they know they're hot because they start chucking. They start when they touch the ball, they chuck.
So it's because it's memory based and what you believe in and what they believe in the moment. Again, doesn't if you define a hot streak as, like, I don't know what a hot streak is, like maybe it's 5 baskets in a row.
Right.
When people think it started and when it's finished, is no relation to whether or not it actually has. Right.
Yeah, it would also be interesting because I would want to see what their definition of hot and how they're measuring continuous hot or a regress to the mean, and it doesn't actually shift.
I think it's the first Freakonomics book.
Right.
Or one of those pop economics books. It's just like one of those things where it's the same kind of thing with Moneyball, where, you know about Moneyball?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like your feelings or your understanding of how well a player is performing is almost always wrong.
I would say there is evidence that you're right, for sure, because I've seen a lot of times players looking up and having no idea what is actually going on. They're just playing.
Yeah.
They're not counting baskets. They're not counting misses. They just play.
They're in the moment.
They don't know the score. They don't know.
In fact,
how much time's left.
If they are truly thinking on those levels, they're probably now shifted out of the muscle memory zone where they should be acting.
Right.
That's where the true greatness happens is when they're in the zone, right?
Yeah.
They're not thinking at that devoid, like they're robotic at that point, like they're in the zone. That's the value.
Yeah, there's definitely a saying in MMA that when you start thinking about your next punch, you're gonna lose a fight.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's I think that could probably go to a lot of almost all sports, and certainly anything that's muscle memory based.
Yeah.
I've seen it in performance as well. Is when you can see it when. I've seen it in friends that are concert pianists. Yeah. I remember in school I had a few friends that, they would be practicing, and if they started thinking about the performance that they're doing, and you could see the moment where they're in the flow and the zone state, and it's you have confidence in them, and then you can see them also at the same time when they are thinking about it too much. Right. And they get in their own way and they miss finger. Right. And that affects them. It's because they're no longer in the flow state.
Now I'm just armchair making shit up because I don't know, right? But I know it's rare. It's rare.
Yeah.
But possibly what's happening is, yes, they do get some psychological lift on their shots, but then they also start to think about it too much because now they're hot and they're thinking about their hot, and it shifts back. Yeah. So it kind of regresses to the mean.
And I think that's that's the whole pressure thing. Why World Cups and playoffs are so fascinating and interesting, is because of what pressure does to some people. And like I've got a pet, I don't know, pet interest of, I just call it, it's about chutzpah.
Chutzpah. I've heard of chutzpah, but I don't know what it is.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's like, what is chutzpah?
Right.
Why do some people have chutzpah?
Is it a Jewish word?
I think it is.
I think it is, right? Yeah. It's just saying you got it. You got chutzpah. You got something.
You know, I think if you wanted to use another word, you have guts. You have balls.
Right.
You have.
In my mind, I can hear an old Jewish man saying, "You got chutzpah, kid."
You got chutzpah, you know.
Yeah.
And you see it sometimes when you have like a really good performer or singer
right.
that are commanding a crowd.
Right.
They've got this sort of impregnable field.
Right.
They have strong. Their personality is so strong that they can draw everyone.
Yeah.
And
they almost seem they can write their own history in the sport. Like they're creating that reality.
Well, and they are so in the zone, and they have such strength of who they are in that moment.
Yeah,
they've got such chutzpah that they can carry the day.
Right.
But the moment they start overthinking it or doubting it or things like that, that's where it all falls apart.
You see it a lot, I think, in boxing and fighting when they get too famous, and then they stop having the chutzpah. They stop caring. They've made it. They lose it.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor is a very good example. Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. He when he rose in the UFC had something that just seemed like he was untouchable. Right. Like he just could not lose, and he would not lose until he got what he wanted, and he just seemed to command everything around him.
Right.
And it was just such a weird thing to see. It was very interesting because I started watching UFC because of that.
Yeah, well, I always thought his whole thing was that he may not be the best fighter,
right?
But he is one of the most entertaining fighters.
At the time, he was the best fighter.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no doubt. There was a lot of doubt. Okay, I'll say that. There was a lot of doubt.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. There was a lot of doubt.
But he made the world see that there should not be any doubt because he would not lose. And then he was the first one to win 2 belts, different weight classes.
Gotcha.
He knocked out like a 13 defending champion in like 13 seconds, and like everything he was doing just seemed like ordained.
Right.
Yeah, and you're right that people didn't respect because it was so flashy and just so quick, and he just knocked everyone out. The people didn't respect the skill he had.
Right. I mean, yeah, I've only seen like one of the fights.
Yeah.
He got his ass handed to him.
Yeah, that was probably the big one in October against Khabib.
Yes, yeah. So I saw that one.
Yeah, so what happened there, and that's why I was referencing it, in my opinion, a lot of people probably think he would have lost no matter what, but I don't think he would have. But he fought Floyd Mayweather, who's like one of the...
Yes,
he's
the
most
giant.
Yeah, for like $40 million, $100 million, something ridiculous. And the highest paid in UFC is like maybe 1.5 million, 2 million.
Yeah.
So he just like made a crazy highest, most famous probably sports athlete of that year, the highest of the high, and then he took a year, 2 years, something like that off, and then fought the most dangerous, scary guy in the UFC. So there just was not the same kind of oomph there, chutzpah anymore.
Yeah, or the motivations are
exactly
are different at that point. Like perhaps his motivation was another $40 million.
Right, which he probably got, but he didn't need it now.
He doesn't like he's already got the 2 belts.
Yeah,
he doesn't.
He created his legacy. He got the boxing fight that nobody's ever done.
Yeah,
made the switch over from UFC to boxing. He went 10 rounds with the greatest lightweight boxer of all time. Not bad with boxing and UFC, completely different sport.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, so you wonder, I mean, about his personal motivations.
Yeah.
And how they're different.
Right.
And whether or not, champs get dethroned all the time for, maybe they don't want it as much, but maybe actually just the science or the competitor that's come up has come up in time is now just truly better.
Right. I think probably a little mixture of both, depending on the person. But I think it's interesting because even if you want to feel like you have the same drive, you probably just can't create it because you've got there already. It just doesn't really exist because you now have it, so there isn't a thing missing driving you.
Well, I think that's why like the people that consistently keep it up throughout their career, either sports or in business or art or music, the people that can consistently go back to it over and over and over again are the most interesting.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's not because they are going for levels.
Right.
Like their motivation is no longer
they're loving the practice, the hobby of it.
They
They're
fall
not
in love with the
they're
work.
not they're not goal centric.
Exactly. Like
Right.
they fall in love with the work, and the work is the point.
Yeah.
The accolades and the levels of success only happen to be only marginally
Right.
like that's noise to what their motivation is.
Right.
I think you probably could do a nice little meta-analysis of all the artists who fell out of love with the work or weren't in it for the process,
Mm-hmm.
and how long their careers ended up lasting.
Right. Yeah. I think that's true. Just thinking of myself with writing I remember thinking when I was younger that I want to be a famous writer. And that's pretty much gone now. I just want to be able to write because I like writing. That's all anything that matters.
Yeah.
The only goal there is to actually write for a living so that I can do that more.
Yeah.
And that's nothing beyond that.
Writing
Exactly. That's the only goal.
Now, is that creative writing or is that
creative
any
writing?
type of writing?
No,
Yeah.
and no, not any type of writing. It's because it's entirely I like making stories.
Right.
So like I even feel like one day I'll start making movies
Right.
because I like stories. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Poetry I like because it kind of informs my writing
Mm.
on the creative side, but it
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't like it as much because there is no inherent story in some poetry.
Just very
Not
short
all of it.
stories.
Yeah, some are short stories, some are no story at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up there.
Okay.
That was a good one.
There you go.
We got through about, I would say 1/5 of the stuff I had written down.
Really?
Which is a good sign. I think that's a good
Okay,
sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I'm interested in what else you had, but